Well, Denise, great to have you with us this morning. I guess I wanted to start by asking you about your years in education because schools have been putting classes together since forever. But I guess, given your time in education, what was the key tipping point for you that actually made you switch to a computer based system for creating classes?
Yeah, I think it was my teaching experience. I taught 20 years in the classroom before I became a principal. And so every spring, our group of teachers, our cohort would make the little cards, lay them out, have the discussions, make the classrooms, and spend hours on it. And then it wouldn't turn out the way we thought it would. It always was different in the fall. And so when I became a principal, the school that I started in had used Class Creator before, and I thought it was brilliant. I wished I would have thought of it. So I was on board right away. I loved the student profiles. I loved the piece of being able to move students and then see the impact on a class right away. There were so many benefits to it. So I had the benefit of seeing it on both sides as a teacher and as a principal.
So you didn't look back to the days of the cards on the table and that I guess that collegial aspect of talking to people and say, "Oh, I really miss that."
No, no. And, as a principal, you spend the summer here and teachers aren't here, and you get the parent phone calls and you get the changes and kids moving, and all of that is to manage it um, is really challenging. But with this program, you can move students so seamlessly, and then also see the history, by looking at their profile card, what their needs are and
Mm.
who their separations are, without having to call a teacher, without having to, it's a great program.
Now, I wanted to briefly talk to you about the accumulation of information because you talk about student profiles and being able to easily see that. How has the accumulation of that information over the years that you've been using Class Creator, and it's been a few years for you now with the product, how has that changed your approach overall to creating classes, knowing that you have this body of information about your student cohort there when you're creating classes?
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest impact it's made having that data is the conversations between teachers in calibrating, well, what one teacher thinks is a behavior might not be what another teacher thinks is a behavior. And so we've had to talk about, okay, and define what, you know, if you rate that student this way, what does that rating mean? And make sure we're all on the same page. So it's only helped us calibrate and strengthen our collective efficacy around the program.
Do you find that that also makes a difference and like a noticeable difference to academic outcomes or academic improvements in the class as opposed to purely, I guess, what you would call organizational improvements?
Hmm. Yeah, the groupings are, we try to create a balanced classroom, and so and especially after COVID, when you have classrooms that are so, you know, um, uh, diverse, you have kids that within one classroom you could have um, kids that have a span of two grade levels, and so being able to balance those in a way that makes it doable for a teacher to teach that class is important. And having all of those assessments in one place where you can go in and look, because the teachers put those on the student profiles.
So, in terms of groupings, I guess there's also that issue of separations, and I'm assuming then that you would find the same benefit then in being able to see early issues with needing to separate students and being able to do that in a balanced way as well.
Hmm. Yeah, that's important. And then also making sure that they're balanced with our special needs students. So we have students that are on behavior IEPs, that are on academic IEPs, that are on speech IEPs, and to make sure we don't load one classroom with all of those special needs students makes for better outcomes as well.
Mm. And talking with parents, I would assume, would make, or talking with parents is something that you consider to be an important part of generating a healthy school environment and good education outcomes for your students. Has Class Creator been able to improve the way you communicate not only with your teachers but also with the parent body?
We don't take necessarily teacher requests for the following year, but we do if a family has had that teacher before, then we allow the family to request that teacher. So being confident, I guess, how would I say this? Having a program that allows us to be confident in the classes that we build and being able to communicate that to families is important because then it gives them the why of, you know, why their student is placed where they are, that we've really intentionally made that happen.
If I was to think now about a principal who was in the situation that you used to be in, the one that you don't miss, going back to the old methods, if someone was considering a system like this, but they hadn't made the jump yet, and they were considering something like Class Creator, given your experiences now and the experiences you've had with setting up classes, being able to talk with your teachers, being able to communicate better with parents, what would you say to them? Is it a simple decision?
I think it's definitely worth the cost, especially for principals these days. There is so much on our plates that the time and the intentionality around creating these, classrooms that work for the year, you're saving yourself time throughout the school year around behaviors, around, students that aren't making academic progress, around it. It solves, is preventative, right, around issues. So when you have a classroom that works socially, academically, it's balanced, then you're saving yourself time throughout the whole year. When you have a dysfunctional classroom as a principal, your work is it's compounded. So I would say it's not just about building the classrooms, it's about the outcomes all year long.
And these are your reflections. Have you found similar feedback coming from your teachers?
Yes, yes. And I think it's part of them being part of the process and seeing the profiles and seeing, the printouts of the classroom academics and behaviors and giving them all that information by just being able to print it out. It's amazing.
Sounds like it's made a really big difference. If you could just give someone one piece of advice who was considering it, what would you say to them?
Try it. Try it. It's going to save you so much time and um, go in and see a demo of it. It's pretty incredible. It's, as principals, we have these ideas. We wish we could create them, and then somebody has done it. So um, it's it's worth it.
Thanks so much for sharing that insight. It sounds like the classes at your school are so much better for it. Denise, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.